And welcome to Krav Life. I'm Paul Simos, and today I have a special guest, Mr. Michael Johnston. How are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. So can you just let us know what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm actually in Northern Ireland. Sunny Northern Ireland, actually, for a change today.
Nice.
It's normally a lot colder.
That's because you're on the interview with us, so...
Yeah, you brought the weather with you.
Yeah, we did. I want to start with sort of like a little bit of background on yourself. How did you get started in Krav Maga? Like, were you a martial artist before getting into Krav Maga, or did you start right away in Krav Maga?
Just straight away into Krav Maga. I kind of lucked in, I would say. That's me obviously being biased, but I'd never really done any martial arts before. I dabbled in a bit of fighting, as it were, but nothing really I could turn around and say that it was an actual art. I started about 18 years ago, just really to sort of gain a bit of fitness. I wasn't really into going to the gym, running or anything like that. And I find myself really, really enjoying it, learning, a new skill and being able to sort of, develop that as well.
Mm-hmm. And so who did you start your Krav training with? Like, what organization?
I started with an organization called Krav Maga NI, obviously for Northern Ireland. I was with them for about 10 years. And it sort of went from, what we would do practically. And unfortunately, the commercial element started creeping into it. And I found more and more that it was more about belts and courses where you can get a belt at the end of it, and it sort of I become a wee bit disillusioned with it. And one thing led to another, and I end up departing from that organization and forming my own organization.
Oh, nice. And what's your organization called?
My organization is called CCDS. That's Contact Combative Defence Systems. We train in a number of Krav Maga systems. One would be TKM. That was my first instructor's course that I took in New York under Boaz Avram. That's pure Krav Maga. I then went on to Tactical Edge, which was going to be called Tactical Krav Maga. It's under a guy called Mark Davies. He was he's basically ex-military. He developed the system really so that you can, carry heavy objects over miles and miles and miles, and then be able to fight at the end of it. Nice. He also has the draw point system, which is primarily weapons based, but it can be sort of utilized for, say, improvised weapons. And our main system would be CKMI. That's Krav Maga International, under Lior Offenbach, where I went to Israel and trained for 10 horribly wonderful days in 120-degree heat for those 10 days. It was absolutely fantastic experience. I actually did that only about 4 years ago. So still training, still learning all the time, nice. Which I find is very, very practical.
So what was it that first attracted you to Krav Maga and not like karate or some other art?
Pretty simple. I seen a poster. One said ninjutsu, right, and one said Krav Maga, and I fancied being a ninja. But whenever I phoned it, nobody answered the phone, so I phoned the Krav Maga guy, and he picked up. So the rest is history.
Wow! So a simple phone call set you on the path.
That's basically it. Yeah.
It's more like destiny, I guess.
Yeah, called that. Yeah.
And so for your organization, how do you see it evolving?
Well, continuing to train, outside of what we already know. If you're you think that you've got to a point where you know it all, you're basically standing still. Krav Maga is continually evolving, continually adapting to meet the next threat. I see our organization not only, I want to be able to learn how to train more in different systems of Krav Maga, but I see our organization hopefully expanding. Meeting people like yourself, Paolo, and learning from others as well.
Nice. And so you've mentioned like a bunch of different trainings that you did. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of those trainings? Like, tell us about those 10 horrible days.
The horrible days, horrible, wonderful days. CKMI. Yeah, I would say CKMI is probably one of the most basic of basic Krav Maga systems. It's principle based. Okay, so it's not. I mean, we understand that everything's subjective in the martial arts world. Everything's subjective when it comes to what you'll say will work and what I will say won't work and stuff like that. So it's all principle based, reality principle based. So our principles would be knowing that nothing is 100% guaranteed to work, but it does it have a reasonable to high success chance of working under movement? Does it work under resistance? Does it work under reaction to action? Does it work under gross motor skills whenever you're that adrenaline stress kicks in? Basically, does it work overall dynamically? So when it comes to say that subjective thing, then you can narrow that down to those principles, so that you've got a good idea that what you're training and what you're instructing is practical, from a practical point of view.
And so is it the simplicity of it that you enjoy?
It is the simplicity, really. It's we have a saying, I'm not sure if you're aware of the saying, keep it simple, stupid. If you're genuinely teaching people to do a spinning back kick, that's not happening in the real world. That's not happening in a fight. That chaos of violence, it's just not. It's not going to be there. So it's not. So fundamental training, okay, and then when you get the fundamentals, your foundations, we can build off that. Our students are taught to go from that conscious competence, okay, to becoming unconsciously competent at what they're doing. So whenever the proverbial hits the fan for real, they don't even think about it. They just automatically react. It's like you're driving a car. You remember the first time? I don't know. Do you have automatics in Canada? Is it stick?
We do. We have both.
Oh, you have both. Well, have you ever drove a stick and you got into a car and the first thing you did was that kangaroo petrol thing? You've taken the clutch out too quickly and you've accelerated too much and you've got that bang, 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 bang thing. But as you go along and you get into the car and use it more often, it becomes smoother and smoother and smoother, and to the point where you're actually driving from A to B and you can't even remember how you got there. You've become unconsciously competent of what you're doing, and that's what we're trying to achieve in our students. Nice.
Can you give us an example of some of the principles that you guys teach?
Yeah. So anything will work. Anything that you train or you're instructing will work statically and cooperatively. So if you're standing there with a student and you're showing them this plucking, get up onto one foot and kneeing somebody, okay, it's going to work 100% of the time. So it is. But as soon as you add the element of movement, who grabs someone like, the Frankenstein thing where somebody reaches out both hands and they stand there with their legs apart to get a perfect, so you can do a perfect snap kick. That doesn't happen. Somebody will grab you violently, be up in your face. So you add the element of movement into your technique to ensure that it has that the ability to work there. Same with resistance. If I'm going to try and put you into an arm lock and you don't want to go into an arm lock, you're going to resist it. So we have to take that into account. Reaction to action, everything that I do. So my defense will have a reaction from you as my attacker. So if it doesn't work under that reaction, I mean, you're talking split seconds, then basically throughout. Adrenaline stress, so you're down to gross motor skills. Pushing, pulling, grabbing, kicking, punching, running. That's all you've got. Basically, so adding something that's going to be complicated is well, you're just fooling yourself, and you're fooling your students. You're basically lying to your students that they would have the ability to do this Jason Bourne type technique under that adrenaline stress. We're talking about like maybe somebody pulling an ice. You're under the biggest stress of your life, and you're supposed to do something fancy. It ain't happening.
No, you're sure? No jumping, spinning kicks. I thought
that's for the advanced class.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you mentioned a couple organizations that are influential on you. So what's the difference between them? Like, can you tell us a little bit more about their influence on you?
Yeah. So Tactical Edge. Tactical Edge would be it is a self-defense system, so it is hand to hand. A lot of it would be offensive as well. So offensive weapons. And when I talk about offensive weapons, I'm talking about something that you can carry legally. A newspaper, a torch, a pen, a pencil, your set of car keys and stuff like that. It's designed to be able to utilize those and not get you arrested. Okay, so what I'm not sure what the legal definition of self-defense in Canada is. We are allowed to defend ourselves regardless of whether someone is still in the first punch or not. So somebody pulls a knife at me, I can pretty much, there's an intent there. Someone physically or verbally tells me that they're going to knock my pan in, I'm allowed to go first. I'm just going to take them at their word. And we're covered under law here in Northern Ireland because of that. Same way as I would say, if you're using something that you have in your hand, like even a bottle of water, was it warranted and was it necessary? Tactical Edge is something that we can use that is not going to get us into trouble, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
So it seems like you discuss the legalities of using Krav Maga.
Yeah. Well, it's part of. I mean, like, it's as important to explain the legalities to your students. I mean, the last thing that I would like to be doing is being a witness for the defense. Someone saying, "Well, why did you teach your student to do that?" You've got to cover yourself with all those aspects of our training, because it's in the title, self-protection, self-defense. It's not, there's no word in it that suggests that you should be doing anything bar that. So letting the student know, it's as important for the student to know how far they can go within the realms of that sort of gray area, as it is to making them to understand, why they're doing what they're doing when it comes to those principle-based techniques.
Okay. Yeah. So you definitely address that in class, and then discuss with the students how far they can go in their self-defense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's context. Okay, so the level of violence that's being meted out. So if I walked around a corner and I seen a guy literally trying to stab someone to death, there's a difference there between me walking around the corner and seeing two guys arguing together. Okay, so the guy has already shown me intent that he is willing to take someone's life. So I'm going to be able to respond to that level of violence, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the students are taught that as well. It's not like the student will walk in and turn and say, well, I can only go so far here. The guy's shown intent to actually end somebody's life, so you have to take into account the levels of aggression, the levels of intent, the levels of violence that they during whatever scenario. And you should try to, for me, my opinion is you should be trying to think of as many scenarios as you possibly can. For me, YouTube's a brilliant place, not for going to show anybody techniques. Don't get me wrong, that's not. But being able to see the types of things that can happen, and working out solutions. What should have happened there? How should that have been addressed from a level where was it warranted, was it necessary? So that if you do end up in having to answer for your actions, you can justify them. You can basically say, well, this is what I witnessed, and this is how I responded to it to the best of my ability. Because we're not robots. We're decision making machines, and sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we want to be trying to, as best possible, make the right decisions, and that's hard to do in the middle of a violent situation. This stuff can happen. It would be a case of just say you do defend yourself, and your opponent heads to the ground and bangs their head off the concrete, and there's blood pouring out everywhere. Your first natural human instinct would be to go and give aid to that person, where the first thing you really should be doing is looking around to make sure that you're still safe, that somebody else isn't going to come in and kick you in the head while you're attending to the person you've just defended yourself against. So all those aspects should be in there, pre-altercation, during, and post as well. You should be always thinking your safety comes first.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you see someone lying there on the ground, and you rush to their aid, but you don't know if you're rushing into an active shooter situation, and you could be putting yourself in more danger.
Awareness as well. Awareness, of that kind of thing. Under adrenaline stress, your vision's going to narrow. It's going to, it's going to be focused on the problem of what you're trying to solve. It's being able, through your training, it's being able to recognize what to do correctly. And in a sequence, and if you can get to that point where your students understand the sequence, then you're in a good stead there.
Nice. So what is your personal philosophy on Krav Maga? Like, how, because you've trained with a bunch of different organizations, so it's obviously a fusion of them. What do you personally believe?
That no way is the true way. I'm not sure whether that is somebody else said that, but it's a pretty good saying when it comes to that. The organizations that I trained with and was an instructor, I'm now an instructor with, I don't agree with all of their techniques. Again, it's one of those things where it can be a bit subjective. I don't agree with it. Just to divert a wee bit, I find a lot of the time where some systems, they're nearly developed kind of we can't use that technique, okay, because they use that technique. Do you understand? So they'll develop a different way of doing the same thing. So they'll develop a different way of doing something. So for example, somebody grabs you by the throat, okay, and they grab, your instinct would be to grab the hands, okay. Well, some people actually cross their arms and try to get the hands down. It's nearly like they can't sell it. Yeah. So I wouldn't agree with everything that with everything that is being shown to me, I look at it, I rationalize, I using the principles that we have instilled, and then we can work out the good from the bad. A really, really big problem I find when it comes to any martial art or any self-defense system is, say a naive new student comes in. I don't know. Sorry, Paulo, I don't know yourself. Whenever you started training, okay, you walked through the threshold of the venue. Yeah, you stood there and you listened to the instructor, and you basically took at face value what he was saying. Correct?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because everybody's standing around you, the peers around you, they're all standing there with the black belts. Maybe your instructor has this big title, 7th Dan Senior Master Instructor. So you're going to be standing there going, yeah, well, he must know what he's talking about. And you accept everything that's being shown, because nobody's really standing there, asking any searching questions. And that's where the problem I find with a lot of people that can then start using that naivety in their students to be able to sell them other stuff. Yeah, we would, we'll only be holding you back if we didn't put you through your grade. It's a short system. It should be easy to learn. Oh, of course you can go on a 3-day course, and get a belt at the end of it. I think where people fall down is they don't do the research. They instead of, a simple, valid check whether you're the person that's teaching and instructing what they're showing you is a current valid instructor and what they're actually teaching. How do you do that? You PM the developer. If he's saying he's teaching CKM, well, PM Monty Isaac, is this just do your due diligence. It would save a hell of a lot of time, and it would have saved me a hell of a lot of time as well for being able to properly understand, and I'm still learning, to properly understand what a good system actually looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's not just a problem in the self-defense space, but it's also a problem in martial arts as a whole, because there's no oversight committee, right? There's no regulation. There's not even a consensus on what a bare minimum should be.
Very much so.
So what are some of your tips on, like, other than doing the research, what are some of the
research? So for us, CCDS, we have a governing body. Okay, so we have an outside governing body. Our instructors' courses are you get an accreditation. Okay, you should be able to be honest. I mean, there's quite a few organizations. It's pretty simple to recognize. Are they selling T-shirts? Is it selling a if you've got students that are being passed 100%, black belts passed 100%. Again, courses where you get a belt at the end of them. The evidence is all there if you just actually, open your eyes and look at it. CCDS is trying to develop, and we're still in development of quite a few courses where an outside governing body comes in and they assess the students, they assess the instructor. We also have an internal verification, so we do, where instructors of our own come in and they make sure that everything is being taught the way it should be. Yeah. And peer reviews as well. So the student candidates that are all on the instructor's course, they're all reviewing each other. The instructor's course isn't, it's very, very important to distinguish between an operator's course and an instructor's course. You're looking for students to have the ability to actually impart the knowledge, to show the students, and be able to teach, as opposed to just going through techniques. A lot of instructors courses that I have been on, or a few instructors courses that I've been on, that's not the case. It's literally just go through the techniques and you're handed your instructor's certificate at the end of it. Due diligence. I mean, I think as well, it's funny. We're pretty sensible when it comes to protecting ourselves, aren't we? I mean, we even protect ourselves whenever we go out of the door. If it's raining, you put a raincoat on. Sense and sensibility seems to go out the window as soon as someone comes up against somebody that's got a black belt and they're telling you that this is the way you need to be doing something, and you're just accepting it. I mean, I did it myself. I'm guilty of it myself. Some of the techniques that I was shown in the past and just took for granted that they were supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do. Were complete BS. And I think as well, you learn from your mistakes. You know, having me having went through that and realized then that, you know, that's not what it should be. I'm able to sort of nearly, you know, passing that on to my students that come in. And it's very, very important, as I said before, that the student understands why they're doing what they're doing. If you're just telling them, this is what you do, just take my word for it, well, that's not the way to teach anybody.
Yeah. It's I do find that there are instructor courses out there that are just here, do this technique, learn this technique, and not many, or I haven't done them all, but I mean, the good ones are the ones that say, okay, this is the technique and this is why it works. Kind of like the understanding of like the biomechanics of the body and how things are actually going to play out in real life under stress. Because it's like you said, it's completely different if the person's just standing there with their arm out to do a disarm than it is if the person's pulling back and you know, trying to wrestle the weapon back from you. So
as well, sorry, Paulo. As well as that, if you're teaching, say, 4 separate techniques to solve something that can be solved with one technique, you know, an overcomplicated system is very, very dangerous from my point of view. It's very, very dangerous because violence happens in a second. Yeah. And if you're trying to access the technique, if you're trying to think at 1,000,000 miles an hour, is it coming to the top of me? So for instance, this is about to come to the top of my head, it's come to the side of my head, it's going to my ribs, it's going to my leg. You know, that can be overcome with one technique. Yet there are systems out there that have to have an individual technique for top of the head, side of the head, into the ribs, under the leg. The system that I find the systems that work the best are the ones that are simple. There's less to know. There's less boring Krav Maga. Leo Offenbach stated to me, says Krav Maga should be boring. You know, all right, you can you know, do things and add things into class to you know, make it interesting and stuff. But whenever it comes to your core system, it should be very, very simple, very, very basic.
And I agree with that statement because you know, having too many self-defense techniques just overly complicates things. You're not going to remember that under stress. I agree. The simpler, the better. Gross motor skills, all that stuff. So, having said that, though, do you tailor the individual techniques? Because you mentioned before, you know, some people might bring their hand up to here which would be perfect for plucking, but then other people move differently. Do you tailor the self-defense to the person's reflexes?
As best possible. Well, we would have. Okay, so as best possible. Okay, so you keep it simple, stupid. Say what you'll find is, okay, so what I find is 80% of the people that will come into my class, okay, they will they will pick up the technique that you're showing, or the techniques that you're showing, within the class. Okay, I mean, sometimes a wee bit longer, sometimes a wee bit shorter. You'll have 10% that'll come in regardless of what you show them. They'll get it nearly right away. Okay, they're just naturals. Okay, and then you'll get 10% that'll come in, and you'll say stick your left arm out, and they'll stick their right. Okay, so they're very, very difficult, and it's understanding people's learning skills as opposed to, say, tailoring. All right, I think everybody has the ability to do simple tasks. All right, and it's recognizing, for me, it's recognizing a certain person's learning style. So for yourself, you may be very, very adept at learning something kinesthetically. So physically, you're you're a meat and potatoes guy. You want to get in there and you want to start working on the biomechanics and stuff. Okay, you will get people that will learn orally. So you're literally describing this thing to them, and they're finding it easier to understand. Visual, you'll have that people that will watch you doing what you're showing. Okay, and that could be in the form of with a person, another training partner, or simple protocols. So acting it out, acting the actual mechanisms of what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, and then you'll have even written. I have a student who went to other Krav Maga classes, and just she was part of that 10%. Couldn't get anything. Just she felt like she was walking away. She was wasting her money. She admitted, she says, sometimes I'm watching a technique, and by the time the technique's finished and I'm wandering off with my partner, I forgot it. I'm basically relying on my partner to show me it again, which isn't very good, because their partner is a student as well and they're trying to learn. So what we found was that when she wrote it down in her own words, in her own head, how she was actually thinking this technique through, okay, and using, whatever imagination that she had as well, she was able to write it down, take it away, and actually train it. And whenever she came back, there was a vast improvement. So when it comes to tailoring, okay, yes, you can do that with the 80%. If you know what I mean. When it comes to tailoring, your technique, I think, should work regardless of the size of your opponent, how the gender of your opponent, how even well trained your opponent is. I mean, like, I certainly wouldn't be taking anybody on their own game. But for you to be for an instructor, there is a certain amount of things that you should know, i.e., how to do the technique that you're showing left as well as right. Yeah. So that visually that you're able to impart that knowledge as well. Tailoring, yeah, I believe there's a certain amount of tailoring that can be done. But when it comes to that, I would delve more into discovering the student's learning style first.
It's interesting. So how is the situation there in Northern Ireland? I know here in North America, we've seen an uptick in violence, and definitely people are stressed. How is it where you are?
Northern Ireland, believe it or not, I'm not sure. You're probably aware of the Troubles. Yeah. Northern Ireland is relatively. It's not what everybody thinks it is. You're not going to be, coming to Northern Ireland and be met, have to walk around ever vigilant. Although we haven't touched on it, but awareness is very, very important. You should know where to sit when you walk into a pub. You should know where to sit when you walk into a cafe. You should be recognizing other people's behaviors. They're operating above or below baseline. But in Northern Ireland, crime is relatively low. We are seeing an uptick in more knife crime. It's unfortunately, nowadays people find that bringing a weapon to, say, a fight is nearly acceptable. You know, when it comes to guns, no, it's virtually non-existent. With the with with the new UFC style kind of thing, believe it or not, a lot of people will just look at watching the fights and think that they're Conor McGregor. You know, so we're now finding everybody's trying to take each other to the ground, and they're doing ground and pound and stuff like that. But when it comes to, Northern Ireland it's a beautiful country. So it is. It's it's not. It's been given a very, very bad name, especially with its past. In fact, I'm sitting here, so I'm looking across and can see Scotland from where my house is.
Oh, nice.
It's a beautiful day, so it is. Absolutely beautiful. What do you find? Sorry, could I ask you a question? What do you find as the most sort of prevalent form, kind of threat attack that's going on in Canada?
Well, according to our statistics, it is just hand to hand. But when weapons are involved, it is a knife, and but there is a rise in like gun, right? In our area, we went from, I grew up with no carjackings or anything like that, to within this past year and a half, there's been multiple shootings and carjackings and that sort of thing. And we're not overly sure why that's happening, but it definitely is more violent here now.
With the pandemic, just popped in my head. With the pandemic, we're seeing a rise in domestic violence. Okay, so attacks on partners, both women and men. We're seeing a real prevalent, it was bad. It was bad during the Troubles, but it seems to have escalated. Now, or attacks on emergency services for whatever reason. These people are trying to help you. For whatever reason, we're actually trying to break into teaching emergency services like an ambulance, fire brigade, and stuff like that. Practical, even non-aggressive disengagement. It doesn't have to go to the point where they're beating the head off each other. Unfortunately, at the moment, the government guidelines, they have a system that they have to use exclusively. But the statistics say that the system doesn't work, and there's the evidence for it. It's not like I'm bad mouthing the government guidelines. It's just not working because there's more and more people that are in the emergency services that are being attacked, and they're coming off with pretty horrific injuries.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's something that you guys can resolve there. Right?
100%.
So what sort of courses do you teach? What different programs do you guys have at your facilities?
As I said, we have the Instructor's course, which is designed for people to learn how to instruct. Some people just can't. I know people that would eat and blow me out in bubbles when it comes to their ability to kill dead things, but just can't teach. And likewise, I know people that are average students that are really, really good at communication. So just because you are the next Bruce Lee doesn't mean you will go on my instructor's course and you will be able to get a pass. We have operators courses, so that's basically just going through our syllabus. And we have our syllabus, so you probably find that I'm taking techniques from the systems that I am an instructor in. I won't go outside of that. and it's basic. I mean, I think it's 150 techniques, maybe less, in the operators course. We have courses that deal with both private and public businesses. So any business that's dealing with the public, the conflict management. Okay, so that's where we would start with that, being able to de-escalate aggressive situations, and as well as basic, physical problems. So, what's the most likely thing that's going to happen during, somebody getting into your face. We have we have a firearms course. We have a firearms instructor, ex-Marine. So he'll teach the the handling and the safe operation of handguns, usually the Glock system. We even do a bit of bushcraft, along with some practical self-defense, which is more to do with my enjoyment and pleasure. So it is. So we're still developing courses as we go along. As I said, I would like to be able to try and break into teaching the emergency services, nursing, security, just practical ways of learning how to protect themselves.
Yes. And if someone wanted to get in contact with you, or if they're on a vacation in Northern Ireland, where can they stop by and visit you?
I live in Larne. I live in a wee place called Ballycarry, but my venue's in Larne. They can contact me through my website. That is Contact Combative Defence Systems.com. We run classes, adult classes. Well, we're still under restrictions here at the moment, but normally we are running adult classes on a Monday, Wednesday night. I do a lot of one-to-one training. We have kids classes, 5 to 11-year-olds, 12 to 17-year-olds, every Sunday from 1 o'clock to 2 and 2:30 to 3:30. Along with that, there is the courses as well. So it's pretty easy to contact me. You can contact me over Facebook as well. So my name is Michael Johnston, obviously. You can access me on Facebook. You'll see the blue and white flag in the background and the tagger. That's me, as well as going to our business page, which is Contact Combative Defence Systems.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir, and you have yourself a great time.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Pavel. Bye.